Quick test. What happens when the key defender is not destroyed but simply pulled away? One piece leaves its job for just one move and the whole position collapses. Today, I've got 6 positions where deflection removes an important defender and wins by force. Position 1 is Mikhail Tal versus Klaman from USSR Championship Moscow 1957. Mikhail Tal was the 8th world champion and he won the title at just 23 years old, the youngest world champion at that time. He was famous for fearless sacrifices, tactical chaos, and attacks that seemed impossible to survive. Klaman, on the other hand, was a strong Soviet master who had to defend against one of the most dangerous attackers chess has ever seen. Against Tal, one misplaced defender could be enough for the whole position to collapse. In this position, the key idea is simple. One defending piece is doing an important job, and white can force it away. Once that defender leaves its post, the attack becomes decisive. Pause the video here. It's white to play. Find the move that deflects the defender and opens the winning idea. In this position, Mikhail Tal played bishop takes f5, simply sacrificing his bishop for a pawn. And here, he's trying to deflect the e6 pawn from here. And ideally, black should not accept the bishop and he should continue the game with queen c5 and hope for best. But unfortunately, he captured the bishop and played e takes f5 and now there is no going back and Tal is completely winning. And Tal started his attack with rook takes c7 check, king has to take it, and now he played rook e1 check. Black can also play bishop e6, but that is not great because knight takes e6, and that's it. He just simply lost a bishop, and it comes with a fork, and there's nothing can be done. And pawn cannot capture it because it's a pin. So that is why he can't play bishop e6, and he has to play king d8, and now Tal played queen h4 check. King cannot go anywhere, so the only move black is having is f6, simply blocking the check, and then he continued the game with queen h6, simply putting a pressure on the rook, and if rook moves, then f6 may hang, and there's nothing black can do about it, and black has to give up a rook, and black tried to play one last trick if Tal may fall into that, and played queen a5, and here, if Tal decided to take on f8, that's actually a blunder, because now king will go to c7, and the queen is attacked, and there is one more threat. So let's assume if queen go to like on f6, white simply lost a game after b3. There's checkmate coming on a2 and the rook is hanging at the same time and there's no defense. Yeah, he can play some irrelevant moves, but white lost the game here. So that is why after queen a5, he cannot take the rook, but he has one move which he has to play to continue the game. This is what Tal played, which is knight b3. And knight b3 is doing two things, stopping the pawn from pushing and attacking the queen at the same time. And whenever the queen will move, like he played on queen to d5, then you capture the rook. And here, Tal is completely winning. Black played few more moves, but eventually Tal easily won the game. And it all started with this f5 move, where Tal simply captured the pawn and deflected the e6 pawn and played the great attack against black. Now, let's go to the next one. Hello everyone, I'm Aniket, an Arena International Master, and this is Chess Tactics episode 11. This series is focused on practical patterns that win games, not fancy puzzles. Today's pattern is deflection. Deflection means forcing an important defending piece away from the square, file, rank, or diagonal where it is doing an important job. In practical games, one defender is often holding the entire position together. Once that piece is dragged away, the rest of the position falls apart. Let's understand it better with a simple example. So here we got this position which looks equal. 3 pawns each, one bishop and one rook for both sides. But unfortunately, white is completely winning in this position because of deflection. And here, in this position, white played bishop takes h7. And now, king has to leave g8. And whenever king leaves the g8 square, he will not be able to defend the rook. And he lost a rook. And we get this position where white is exchange up, that simply means rook versus bishop and an extra pawn, which is completely winning for white, and this is deflection. Now let's go to position 2. Position 2 is Steinitz versus Curt from Hastings 1895. Steinitz was the first official world champion and held the title for 8 years. He is known as one of the founders of modern positional chess, but when the positions allowed it, he could attack with incredible precision. Curt was a very strong German master But in this game, he ran into one of the most famous tactical finishes ever played. This position is a classic example of a defender being overloaded and then pulled away at exactly the wrong moment. One forced move changes everything, and after that, the king is left without proper protection. Pause the video here. It's white to play. Find the move that deflects the key defender and starts the winning sequence. In this position, white is completely winning, and Steinish started with rook takes e7 check. And here the point is queen cannot capture it, because if queen tries to capture this rook, there's a rook takes e8, and after rook takes e8, there's a queen takes e8, and after queen d8, queen takes d8 check, king takes, and we'll get this position where white is completely winning because of an extra knight. So that simply means after rook takes e7, queen cannot capture. So if king tries to capture it, white can start with queen before check, and now black is having not too many options, and if he goes back on e8, after rook e1, he will be in big trouble. Because after king d8, there's a knight e6 check, and now king cannot escape, and after king e8, there's a simple queen f8 checkmate, and that is why it's not safe to capture this rook with the king as well. So that is why black played king f8. And yes, it looks like wow, we can simply win the black queen, but do not do that. Because if you try to win the queen, it's simply a blunder because rook takes e1 check and it's a back rank problem. You got checkmated after giving up a queen. So that is why it looks like you can win the queen, but you cannot. So don't try to win the queen. And Steinish showed us how to win this position. And he played rook to f7 check. The point is same. If queen captures, then he will lose the control on c8, then white will simply win the game. So that means again it's not possible, and king cannot capture now because knight is protecting it. So king has to keep moving. And again the same idea. If king e8, then simply queen d7 is checkmate. So that means king cannot go to e8, but king can go to g8. And here Steinish played rook g7 check. Again sacrificing the rook. It's been the third move. He's sacrificing the rook, but black is not accepting it. The idea is same. If queen capture, then rook takes c8 is winning. And if this time king captures, then queen takes d7 comes with a check, and he lost a rook as well. And obviously he can resign. So that is why he tried last time and he played king h8, hoping for a draw or some type of perpetual. But unfortunately, white played rook to h7 check, and here black simply resigned the game. The point is, king will go to h8 and then he'll continue the game with rook g7 check. And here again same idea. If king will go to f8, there's a knight h7 check, and after king takes g8, he'll win the queen and he'll win the game. So that is not possible. Now if you go to king h8, the problem was queen h4 check. And now the black king is trapped. So king has to take on g7, queen h7, king f8, and again do not do a blunder and capture the queen because rook takes rook is simply a checkmate. So white has to play queen h8 check, king e7, queen g7 check, king e8, and that was the whole point. Queen g8 check, king e7, queen f7 check, king d8, and now he'll play queen f8 check, and now king is having no options but to move queen e8, and now he'll play knight f7, and after king d7, queen d6 will simply lead to checkmate. And obviously this is what he can see. That's why after rook takes s7, he simply resigned the game. And it all started with rook takes e7 check. He was simply deflecting the king and not giving any chance for black king to give that e7 square available. Now let's go to the next one. Position 3, Peter Leko versus Vladimir Kramnik from World Championship match 2004. Peter Leko was one of the most precise and technically accurate players of his generation. He was famous for deep preparation, excellent calculation, and extremely disciplined chess. Vladimir Kramnik was a classical world champion for 6 years. He was one of the greatest positional player ever. So when a tactic works against Kramnik, it usually means the idea is completely concrete. Here the tactic is not flashy at first glance, but one defender is doing very specific job and the winning move forces that piece away so the rest of the positions cannot be held. Pause the video here. It's white to play. Find the move that deflects the defender and wins a critical point of the position. If you see properly, the b7 pawn is protecting the a6 and the c6 at the same time. And this is what Peter saw, and Peter started the game with bishop takes a6. And the point is simple: if b takes a6 happen, then he'll win the knight on c6, and his pieces are too active and he can easily win the game. But it's not forced. So after bishop takes a6, Kramnik can take the bishop with the rook, and this is what he did. And now the point was b5. Simple fork to win the material back. So after b5, black played rook takes a3, and after b takes c6, pawn takes back and rook takes. We'll get this position where they played the game for so many more moves. Eventually, Peter won the game because of that weak d5 pawn. And it all started with bishop takes a6. And Peter went into the endgame, which is winning for him, and eventually won the game. Now, let's go to the next one.
If you're serious about improving and want structured training instead of random puzzles, I work with students personally. The link to train with me is in description. Now, let's continue.
Position 4 is Judit Polgár versus Erling from 1989. Judit Polgár was the strongest female player in chess history. She became the youngest grandmaster in history at that time, reached peak rating of 2735, entered the world top 10, and remained the top rated woman in the world for about 25 years. She built her reputation by attacking fearlessly and beating elite grandmasters in sharp positions. Erling was experienced Danish master, but against Judith, one inaccurate defense could be pushed instantly. This position shows deflection in a very practical way. Key idea is guarding an important target, and once that piece is lured away, the tactical finish becomes straightforward. So pause the video here. It's white to play. Find the move that deflects the defender and breaks black's position open. In this position, Judith is clearly winning, and Judith played a move which is not easy to see, and the move was f6. She is simply attacking the rook, and the problem is rook cannot be moved because rook is attacking the knight. So now the only option left for black is knight takes f6, and whenever he will play this, Judith played knight takes f6, king takes f6, and there's a rook f1 check, and that's it, game over. The idea is king got attacked and the bishop is hanging behind that, and if king goes to g7, there's a knight f5 fork. So now it's for Erling if Erling wants to lose a bishop or a rook for a knight. And here black played king g6, Judith continued with rook takes f8, and after rook e3, Judith played rook to f3, and that's it. Everything is saved. Black lost a bishop for no good reason because, anyways, black cannot defend the bishop. And after this move, Erling simply resigned the game. Now, let's go to the next one. Position 5 is Tarrasch versus Romberg from 1893, an odds game where White was playing without a rook. Tarrasch was one of the strongest players in the late 19th century. He won a string of major tournaments and was widely considered one of the very best players alive. He also had a gift for making tactical ideas look clean, logical, and direct. This position is even more interesting because it came from an odds game with White missing a rook from the very start. Even with that handicap, White creates a position where one key defender is tied to an important duty, and once it drags away, the whole position falls apart. Pause the video here. It's White to play. Find the move that deflects the key defender and creates a winning follow up. Taraj is already having a less material. Black is having an extra 7 points of material already. And here, Taraj sacrificed his queen and played queen to h6 check. And obviously, king has to capture it. And here, black is having 13 extra points of material. But unfortunately, his king is not safe. And chess is all about king. And yes, do you remember I told you it's all about g7 square? And here, Taraj played knight e6 check from the bishop. And this knight is making sure that king cannot go back. And here black played king to h5, white continued the game with knight f4 check, and after king h6 allowing this discover check again, white played knight e2 check, and here king g6, and here Taraj sacrificed his rook again and played rook f6 check, and he has to accept this move, otherwise king h5 will simply checkmate with rook h6. So he played king to f6, and if you see, black is having 18 extra points of material. But the point was, he wants to deflect the king, and he needed a king on f6, which he got by sacrificing his rook. He continued with bishop g5 check, and after king g6, knight f4 simply checkmate the black king. You can see how amazing this checkmate is with just two knights, one bishop, and on the center of chessboard. Now let's go to the next one. Position 6 is Tarrasch versus George from 7th Congress 1892. Tarrasch appears again, and that makes sense because his games are full of crisp tactical patterns. He was not just a great theoretician, he was also a very efficient attacker when the moment comes. George was a respected master, writer, and later one of the best known chess journalists of his time. But in this game, he's the one facing a very concrete tactical problem. The final position is a strong example of how deflection works in real games. You don't need a complicated attack if one defending piece is doing too much and can be forced away from its post, you are already winning. Pause the video here. It's white to play. Find the move that deflects the defender and converts the position. In this position, Taraj saw one thing that this knight is protecting on e5. So if he's able to deflect this knight, he's already winning. And he played bishop takes c6. And after bishop takes c6, he simply take on e5. And after d takes e5, he trade the queens as well. And after rook takes d8, he simply win the pawn on e5. And that was all his plan. But it's not about the pawn, it's more than that. Black won the pawn back and played bishop takes e4, and here it looks like we can just simply take it and we are winning. But unfortunately, that's not true. Point is, if you take on e4 and after knight takes e4, if you decided to take on e4, you will simply lose because of back rank problem. So that is why you cannot take this knight, but you can play something knight d3, the only move which is working, and now you are attacking the knight and the bishop at the same time. So here, black played f5, hoping to save the position, but unfortunately, after f3, there is no good way for black to save the position. He still tried and played bishop c5 check, which is simply a blunder, but anyways, the position was lost. And here, white take on c5, and after knight takes c5, he played bishop g5, simply attacking the rook. And now, you can't move the rook on a random square because bishop e7 is a threat, which will simply fork the knight and rook. So he played rook d5, and after bishop e7, rook e8, he played something where black simply resigned and the move was c4. And that's it. If rook moves, then he will win the knight and he will win the game. And rook cannot stay on d5 because he's out of moves. And now you can see how simply he converted this game. It looks very simple, logical, and direct, as I mentioned earlier. So that's deflection. The point is simple. One important defending piece is holding the position together, and you force it away from that job. Three things to look for. First, identify the defender that is protecting the most important square, piece, or a mating line. Second, ask whether the defender can be pulled away by the check, capture, or threat. Third, calculate what stops working the moment that piece leaves its post. That's why this tactic matters so much in practical games. A lot of combinations are not about attacking everything, they're just about removing one important guard at the right moment. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for practical tactics and comment which position was the hardest and tell me what move you found before I revealed it. I will see you in the next one.